Up next, we have Karthik giving another talk about Bangalore.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karthik, and I'm going to talk about the analysis of BBMP tree census data. And in a way, you can look at it as an extension of the previous talk because it was so similar. And just like her, I was also, like driven by the curiosity because I've lived in Bangalore mostly, and the trees are like one of the major things that's still keeping me in the city because I work remotely and I could technically be living anywhere. Uh, Yeah, so the trees are like a very unique thing in like from wherever I've traveled. It's like Bangalore trees are unique in way that like Bangalore actually has, when you look at it in terms of gross area, it has like much less of a tree cover than other cities like Delhi or even Kuala Lumpur for that matter. But what makes Bangalore's trees different are they are so mixed up with the residential areas. It's not like we've set up parks and or like you want tree, you go to the park. But here it's like, hey, like whenever I go out to friends, go out for lunch or dinner with friends, we just typically take a walk after dinner, and even despite the bad walking infrastructure, we are able to do that because there's trees and it's yeah. Even if you're like jumping over potholes or walking on non-existent footpaths, the trees still make walking a very good experience. So so yeah, first let me talk about the data set that I use. It's from published by BBMP in 2024. And for those of you who do not know what BBMP is, you don't need to know because it doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. So, yeah, I downloaded it from opencity.in because it was supposed to be open on BBMP website, but I went there and I saw a captcha and then I tried entering it 4 times and yeah, I just didn't get it from there. So when I downloaded the data, it had about 2.8 lakh trees, and it had like species name, zone name, ward number, and geographical coordinates. And I'm going to stress on geographical coordinates because even 10 years ago, if data like this was published, you would not have the lat long. And now that BBMP is gone and you have only the ward number, which is data is basically useless. But now that we have the lat long, like even with the new administrative divisions, which if you've been reading, there's 5 municipal authorities and Greater Bengaluru Authority and all of that. So I can use the lat long to remap these trees to specific corporations and redo the analysis with any new ward boundaries that come out. Yeah. So that data was only partial. This they said that 15 lakh trees are yet to be counted, and to be honest, it feels a little like, wait, who are we to count the trees? These trees are probably going to outlive most of us, and they've definitely outlived the BBMP. And yeah, it's for me, it's like, like when you are young, you just used to collect like Pokemon cards, or if you like some actors, you used to have posters of them in their house. And since I like the trees, I like to have this whole data set in my laptop. And yeah, it's one of the motivations behind me doing this whole analysis. So first thing is the citywide tree density. So with whatever data we had. So if you can see, there's hexagonal bins, and that's like overlaid on the map of Bangalore. And these hexagonal bins are what is called Uber's H3 geographical indexing system. So it's not a rectangular grid. And Uber developed the system of being able to put points into hexagonal bins, and you can do this at multiple levels. So like each index, the hexagons are going to get bigger or smaller, and there's a whole bunch of resolutions that you can use. And the advantages of using hexagons is that, like, when you take a rectangle, it has like 4 neighbors sharing an edge and 4 neighbors sharing a corner. So 8 neighbors in total, and not all neighbors are equal. But when you take a hexagon, it's like there are 6 neighbors to every hexagon, and they're all equal in their status of being a neighbor. And it's just easy to visualize, the neighbor effects and so on. And if you can see the data itself, you see like some green spots around what I would say is maybe Jayanagar, Banshankari. So that seems to be the most densely populated with trees. And there are like some spots, here and there. And this is one more redundant map because I did this way back last year. But even then, it's kind of useful to see what's going on. So this is from the 8 zones that used to exist in the BBMP. And as you can see, I think the darker color means more tree density. You can see that south and somewhere in the west, the tree density is more. And I think one of those zones didn't have any data. I mean, definitely, it doesn't mean that there were no trees there. We just don't know. Like, maybe they didn't bother to go out and do the census, or I don't know what's going on. So, and this is the data in terms of numbers sorted by, like trees per square kilometer. You can see that South and Rajarajeshwari Nagar are like the more. And I used to live in Rajarajeshwari Nagar for a while. Like, here it's a zone, but what I used to live in the locality, which was also a part of the zone. And the residents there were like, hey, we had like a WhatsApp group for protecting the trees. So if anyone was like suspiciously standing next to a tree with an axe, there would be a mob within 10 minutes. And I think that's the kind of activism we need. Every city needs to protect its trees, especially if the government doesn't care enough. And okay, now let's get into the tree species itself. So the BBMP had undertaken, like they tried to identify tree species, and how well they identified is evidenced by the fact that the second most popular species is called others. Yeah. So that, okay, jokes apart, the first one is Pongamia pinnata, also called honge in Kannada. I don't know if most of you might have heard about this in your environmental science textbooks. I think when you were growing up in the early 2000s, there's a lot of research going on where they were trying to extract biodiesel from the seeds of this tree. So you might have heard about this tree in that context. And there's also American mahogany, rosy trumpet, and Ashoka tree. And yeah, and the Ashoka tree itself is it's one more like common tree. And I remember my great grandmother, who was like not great grandmother, sorry, my grand aunt. She used to live alone in this house, and they had like 2 Ashoka trees in the front yard. And I was like, hey, COVID is coming, you should be like, keep yourself safe, wear a mask. And she's like, no, I have the Ashoka tree. I don't know if that made sense, but that's the kind of attachment people have with these kind of trees. So yeah, here's more trees. And the other one I distinctly want to talk about is the rain tree. If you've seen those huge trees with like a big canopy, and I think every March or so you have these pods falling from these trees. And when we were young, we used to like collect these pods and mash them up, remove the seeds, and we were able to roll them, and it used to become like a ball. And it used to be so hard, like harder than a cricket ball. And we used to use that for training for cricket matches, like because all because we couldn't convince our parents to give us 5 rupees to buy a tennis ball. And okay, let's go with the zone-wise tree distribution. So this, again, we can, like, if you want, we can play a game. Like, there's one tree in the background and top 3 trees. So you can all, if you want, you can guess which of the 3 trees that is. So, and I might have forgotten the answers really, but anyone wants to go for this one? Yeah. I think this one is the American mahogany in the background, and this is the Bomanali zone. You can see, and I've put the count also. And in the east zone, we have again honge, Nile trumpet, and American mahogany. The one in the background should be Nile trumpet. And here's the probably the most favorite one of. How many of you have seen this tree? Yeah, this is like the spectacle that happens every February, March or so. And we usually compare it with Japan, but like the cherry blossoms. But in fact the cherry blossoms in Japan and that part of the world and this particular tree, they are actually like different species. They just have pink flowers and they bloom at that time. So this one is the rosy trumpet, and and a fun fact is like there's a German botanist who kind of planned which tree has to be planted where, and he planned it such that at any given time of the year some or the other tree is flowering. So like every season there is a tree flowering and there's some color for you to see. And despite how gloomy the city is, like the city is gloomy for half the year, and if not color in the sky, you'll at least see some color in the ground. So, yeah, and this is Rajarajeshwari Nagar with the honge seed in the background. Again, this is south with one of the common trees is the MacArthur palm. And I don't know, I think all of us have a mixed relationship with palms. Like, they're probably not native trees, and they're like ornamental, and some people get like really protective about them. Hey, stay away from my palm tree, don't play cricket here. Yeah, so, and this is west. So again, we've seen these trees before. It's honge, American mahogany, and Ashoka tree. And I think the west gets a little bit more wild than the south. Like as they say, the west is always wild. So west is like where Magadi Road and all of those sides. If you've been there. And then there is Yalanka. We see some new trees here. Like there is the gum Arabic tree, which you can see in the background. And Yalanka is in the north, and it's actually a drier area. And if you actually look into Bangalore's geographical classification, like most people would describe Bangalore's geographical area as semi-arid. So what that means is like most often when you leave the city, you will find lesser trees than what's inside the city, which means that a lot of the trees in Bangalore were not like naturally there. It's all because of human effort over many centuries that these trees are there and we're able to enjoy them. And that's what makes it more important for us to like at the least leave it behind, and at the best make it better for the next generations. And yeah, let's coming to the unidentified trees, or the others, which wards had the most other trees. So I think Yalanka tops the list with like 72% of the trees being unidentified, and Mahadevpura is again 31%. That's where all the IT stuff is. Sorry guys, but yeah, I think all the others are like decently okay. And yeah, here's the conclusion is first is thanks to OpenCity for somehow managing to get the data from BBMP's website and putting it there so that I could get it. And even the BBMP zone boundaries map, I could get it from there. It's just much easier. This again, the census is far from complete, and the body that was taking up the census is no more, so we don't know what's going to happen. But there is updated data, and there is lat long for each of these, and we will have the new administrative boundaries very soon, so I can hopefully redo this analysis with the new boundaries. So yeah, that's it. That's my time. So there's the QR code for the blog post and the code used in the GitHub report.
We're gonna skip questions.